Where's Desi? Oh, gal out there.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is the Public Information Education Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. Third District. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is the 17th of October. And so with that, we have our Assistant General Manager, Eric Owens. Could you please do a determination of quorum?
Chair Houston. Scott Houston.
Here.
Harold Williams. Desi Alvarez. Director Donald Deere.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we do not have a quorum for the high committee, but we do have a quorum for the special board meeting.
Very well. Public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak?
There are no written requests at this time, Director Houston, but Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment through the meeting. Though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually, if there is any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand now. We do not see any hands. Director Houston?
All right, very good. Presentations. We have no presentations.
No presentations today.
Action calendar. We have no action calendar today.
Action calendar.
Information calendar. We have 5 items. So start with 6A, Water Lab 2025 free public education programs.
Director Houston, today we have Daryl Ramos Young, the Public Information Specialist 3, presenting this item.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning. Morning, Chair Houston and Director Deere. This report provides an update on the West Basin free public education programs, collectively known as Water Lab, for the 2025 calendar year. Now, the purpose of these education programs is to provide the general public with information about West Basin's mission and water resource management initiatives, provide education about the importance of water and current conditions of our Southern California water supply, and to provide skills and incentives for residents and businesses to practice water conservation. Now, Water Lab includes 3 program formats: Saturday public tours, which for this upcoming year, we aim to accommodate 50 attendees per tour by providing a second tour guide on hand to accommodate the larger tour group. Wednesday night, Know Your H2O classes, which we're currently aiming to accommodate at least 40 people for each session. And then West Basin chats, aiming to accommodate 25 attendees per session. And those are the online virtual half-an-hour sessions to learn more about our turf rebate programs. As in previous years, because of the winter holiday season from November through January, the Water Lab marketing launch will take place in January, promoting the first Saturday public tour, kicking off the program schedule in February. Water Lab activities will then alternate format types every other month. On packet page 4, one can review the 2025 Water Lab calendar dates that include at least 1 education program for every month up until September, upon which Water Lab will conclude for the year. And then water harvest will be conducted in October. And then the winter holiday season will be upon us again from November and December. Now, the schedule does allow for additional programming, which is currently in development by the Water Policy and Resources Department. This includes firescaping classes and WRD partnership gardening classes, upon which recommended dates have been identified within this schedule to allow for adequate marketing without overlapping or overtapping the potential audience recruitment pool for these programs. So short, concise, and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. Questions? Director Gray, any questions? I do have a question, Daryl. Are all of these held at the plant at Sea Little?
Yes. The Saturday tours and the Know Your H2O sessions, yes. And of course, the chats are virtual.
When you do the Know Your H2O classes, does that include a tour as well? No, they're just on site in the
Yes.
All right, well, I don't hear any other questions, so I just want to say I'm glad that we've already got the date set, which means you'll probably do pamphlets in the not too distant future to replace the ones that are for the current cycle already.
Correct.
Good. Good. All right, sounds great. Thank you very much. We'll go to item 6B as in boy, our monthly communications update.
Dr. Houston, the monthly communications update will be presented by Jen Jensen, Public Information Specialist 2, and it should begin on packet page 6.
Just say
Good morning, Director. A lot of great things to get to in this committee report. So I'll begin our October communications update with an overview of our photo releases and web news on page 8. I'll begin to start the report, I'd like to note that this photo release section, in addition to our press releases, we will also pitch photo releases to the media, which capture visual storytelling elements for media to publish, along with a brief storytelling element narrative to accompany those photos as well. So these are a really effective way to represent the agency after events that include multimedia photos and videos to showcase our work in the community. And of course, we continue to report press releases when we have them. And for this reporting month, we pitched 2 photo releases to media outlets. So the first was to promote the district's recycled water fill station to spread the word of this free resource to our service area communities. And we also distributed a photo release showcasing the success of fire escaping workshop in Rancho Palos Verdes. This was a very timely and relevant outreach effort on behalf of the district that captured the great attendance and participation at that event. And I will share more details of that event later on in this presentation as well. And then we also published a web news story aimed at educating and informing people about Proposition 4 in advance of voting on November 5th to really help people understand the ballot bond and break down the complexities of the measure in ways that are easily digestible and easy for people to comprehend. Of course, with a neutral stance from the district and with the purpose of informing people's vote. And then this week, the SBESD also published an e-blast with our Proposition 4 story as well to their audience, and that will be included in the next reporting cycle, but I wanted to make sure to mention that in this meeting as it is relevant. And then moving on into our media coverage on the next page, please. West Basin earned multiple media coverage stories in the past month, which was great to see. El Segundo TV covered a story on the recycled water fill station that aired on Spectrum 3 News and on their YouTube channel as well. This story ran on Spectrum 3 multiple times throughout the month of September and generated really positive promotion of the district and this free service at our fill station. And then West Basin was also mentioned in an article alongside Director Gray for a story about Unity Day celebrations at the tongue twister. And our Assistant General Manager was also highlighted in the California Special Districts Association magazine in the Movers and Shakers section. And it really emphasized his leadership in the water industry and impact at West Basin. And Director Houston's segment on the Voting Hour radio show promoting the water harvest event as well was also a great mention for the district to expand our reach through their audience and to increase awareness of our fall festival. Next slide, please. Under paid media coverage, oh, do you have a comment? Okay. Under paid media coverage, 3 ads were placed this reporting period. The first was in the Patch to promote water harvest and spread the word about the festival. And the other ad was placed in the Daily Breeze to promote the Palos Verdes fire escaping workshop. And then water harvest was also promoted through LA Parents, also showcasing water harvest to their vast audience as well. And then other media coverage on the next slide. We received a lot of positive coverage from multiple outlets here as well. Both El Segundo City News and Manhattan Beach News published a story about our recycled water fill station. Southway Environmental Services sent out e-blasts to promote our fire escaping workshop and water harvest festival. And these e-blasts and newsletters really have proven to be a fantastic form of outreach and education for our programs and events, as many of our attendees report that they hear about West Basin community opportunities through these online outreach methods. And then also, in addition, LA Parent included Water Harvest in their publication promotion as well. And as always, all of these media mentions and articles are available in attachment B located on page 20. Next slide, please. And then on these slides, this really captures our top social media posts across all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we have some really great, fun news to report here. So West Basin's Instagram reel of the recycled water fill station has become the district's second most viewed reel of all time, gaining over 2,100 views since September 4th when it was published. It was shared 21 times and received multiple comments that brought in really organic exposure for the fill station program. This reel was also reposted on the City of Manhattan Beach's Instagram page to their 20,000 followers. And that really showed a coordinated effort between both us and our district and our city partners to engage our combined audiences to promote this service. And on the next slide, on our Facebook platform, I do want to call out the video reel of West Basin's take on a quote, very demure viral social media trend that is currently the district's most viewed post, highlighting West Basin's rebate and conservation programs. The video was created by Erin right back there and Heidi as well, our PI interns. I want to give them a shout out. And it really adapted to, like I said, that current popular social media trend, which is really nice to see West Basin incorporating some of that in a fun, but also educational and professional way. And the city of El Segundo shared that to their stories as well on their social platform. And then our next slide, please. On our LinkedIn platform, the National Hispanic Heritage Month post garnered the most engagement on that platform. And at this meeting, I would like to acknowledge what Director Alvarez said and mentioned at the last board meeting regarding encompassing Latino into the celebration to represent this more inclusively, noting here in this meeting that we do recognize that perspective. And last thing about this social media, through the diversity and the substance that our social media team is capturing on these posts, we're really able to showcase the vast range of work that West Basin does within our communities that we serve and truly give the public an idea of the scope and impact that we have through those fun and creative ways. And then moving on to our PI programs page, next slide, please. I'm excited to share updates and outcomes following the Rancho Palos Verdes firescaping class. The workshop had a total of 25 attendees who were all very engaged and inquisitive throughout the entire class. This event is especially relevant to the PV community due to the increased susceptibility of wildfires, given the current state of the shifting land in that area as well. And to promote this event, we did extensive outreach, including a media pitch, web news story, e-blasts from our district, print flyer distributions, boosted social media posts, paid ads through the PV Peninsula News, and a post-event photo release to the media as well. And then additional promotional elements included outreach collaboration through the PV Cities and Cal Water and SPESC e-blasts as well. Next slide, please. This is a recap of the promotional efforts accomplished for the 2024 Water Harvest Festival. This year's event was a great success and we had a good time planning the event. In large part, the success due to the promotional efforts from the PI team to really maximize awareness of the event and encourage attendance throughout our service area communities. At the end of the year, the PI team will provide a Water Harvest closeout report. But for the purpose of this committee report, we'll share the extensive planning and strategic outreach methods, which included a press release, media advisory ahead of the event, social media posts, a web story, a dedicated website landing page, newsletters, e-blasts, and calendar listings as well. And then we also pitched a post-event photo release capturing some really spectacular pictures of the event and then enjoying the fun learning opportunities. And then we also have social media posts scheduled that showcase all of the incredible elements of this event too. And in addition to that, we also have a recap story included in the fall edition of the Water News newsletter that will be published at the end of this month as per our publishing schedule. Next slide, please.
Before you move on, maybe I missed it. Have we received a link to the photos yet or not? Or is that still in process?
Bill said that.
They did? Hazel, can you resend it to me or whatever? Because I might have just missed it. Thank you.
Next. Excuse me. So this shares programmatic and promotional updates for our Rain Barrel program. The PIE and policy team continue to work together on this effort, as always, after establishing the 6 giveaway event dates. We have an active interest list and have also published web story, press release, and social media advertisements, social media to advertise the giveaway opportunities and events. And then as needed, moving forward, the PIE team will also implement tailored promotional efforts if certain districts require more outreach as well. And then SBESC eBlast will follow too, and as needed, we'll deploy door hangers for additional outreach. And then because this program spans over several months, just as a reminder, from 2024 to 2025, the PIE team will continuously analyze the participation and engagement in the program as it progresses to determine if additional marketing is needed. Next slide, please. This shares the progress of the Parkway Beautification Program. Again, the PIE team collaborating with the policy team on this project, and we're very happy to report that so far we have received more than 130 applications since the program launched, and to date we've completed 32 parkway renovations. And then we're currently screening the newest applications to determine eligibility to fill even more programmatic spots because we have the funding for it. And our targeted marketing efforts for this included door hanger advertisements, a dedicated website page, lawn sign promotions, a web story, and we included programmatic promotion at our recent community meetings and events as well. And then Gus will provide more program details and updates of his report and more details, but I would like to note that the PIE team is currently developing further promo strategies to really prepare for the future program continuation and showcase the impact of these projects in our communities as well through multimedia outreach. And then on the next slide, please. We do want to, I included this in last committee report, but I didn't get to present it. So I do want to make sure that we showcase this as well. The West Basin is bringing public awareness and education on the Prop 4 California climate bonds. And this was very helpful with the policy team too, to develop a strategy for public education to increase understanding of the effects of this legislation that's on the November ballot. And as a refresher for you, Prop 4 climate bond measure would provide financial resources for a very wide range of climate-related projects, including efforts to mitigate the effects of climate change, enhance the state's infrastructure, and promote sustainable practices through areas like wildfire prevention, water conservation, flood protection, and ecosystem restoration. And the PIE team developed a comprehensive set of materials alongside the policy team, including talking points, a web news story, newsletter stories, PowerPoint slides for our directors and our general manager, social media posts, and additional education elements too. And I will mention that while Met has not implemented or shown any planning for public outreach and education on this effort, West Basin did find value in producing materials for this to inform and prepare people in advance of the November election date. And we'll continue to keep the board informed of the impacts and education efforts surrounding this. And I think it's a good opportunity as well for West Basin to show our knowledge and insight on crucial topics like this. Next slide, please. This shares updates on the Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline project. So we'll share the floor with Daryl to provide information on that.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, last month, as the pipeline installation continued to wind down and the construction for the pump station remained poised to begin, these are some of the outreach activity that occurred last month. Basically, some limited resolution was needed to handle resident questions about some really short, narrow slope that was being restored with plants due to the construction along the boundary trail. The street slurry seal, that black protective coating that seals in the road's cracks, provides a nice smooth driving surface while protecting the road infrastructure underneath, was slated to take place. So a notification was completed and a canvass did take place for Palos Verdes Estates. Unfortunately, it was canceled at the last moment. So the consultant outreach team continued to monitor the hotline and the email inbox and remains poised to notify the residents once the go-ahead for this slurry seal resumes. They remain ready for the last month. They remained ready for the pump station building construction launch, and we'll be working on a time-only contract extension. The engineering team is still awaiting a time frame for projections from the contract of when the pump station building will be completed. The consultant outreach team's contract ends in December. So we will go ahead and with the general manager's authority, extend that outreach contract until June 2025 to give enough coverage should construction go longer than anticipated, and we will still have the services of the consultant on hand for any outreach needs should we require it. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Jim.
I have a question. So was it Palos Verdes Estates was going to do this, seal, but then they canceled it?
Yes, it canceled it at the last moment because of unexpected potholes along the route that was actually going to be sealed. So the city has to determine how they're going to be handling the potholes before the seal goes on.
So, but we had done all the outreach prior,
Yes.
and I'm assuming, but I don't know, that cost money for us,
Yeah,
right?
it did.
So now it all got canceled, not our fault. We're gonna have to do this again at some point.
I think that's part of the discussion with the city also to determine what the next steps are and whether the prior notification will still be considered as the advance notification, or if we still need to do it minimal 2 days in advance.
For however it
We're working
works,
through it right now.
hopefully, if it's gonna cost us more money, maybe something can be worked out with the city, right? Because we're already watching this budget really strictly, so I'm sure you all know this, but hopefully we can work with the city that they can assist us in that for this year. Thank you on that. Any other questions? Director Gray?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daryl. All right, continue.
We'll move on to our concluding slide, please. Thank you. This captures upcoming events that the PI team is actively planning to showcase district projects, accomplishments, and community events as well. And in the project pipeline, we are preparing for the public recognition of newly installed directors. And excuse me. On the next item, as the project progresses towards completion, we look forward to planning the celebration of the Juanita Millender McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant expansion when the time comes. And then in addition, requests have been submitted for our new recycled water customer recognition and celebration to commemorate the district's involvement in large-scale recycled water projects with the Intuit Dome and also with Southwest College. The PI team, I will note, is awaiting response from the Intuit Dome staff to initiate collaboration on that, and we will work with the Office of the General Manager to keep the board updated on this. And then as we finalize the project with Southwest College, when the completion date nears, we'll host a celebration event in the new year. And we also look forward to publishing the fall edition of the Water News newsletter and the Procurement Connection newsletter as well to promote project and bid opportunities for business growth to work with West Basin. Those will be published within the coming weeks before the end of October. And the one other notable mention that we look forward to in the next committee report, this is not in this report here, but I would like to mention, Next committee report in November, the PI team will be making some slight enhancements to the PowerPoint visual elements here and incorporating an additional reporting structure on this PowerPoint presentation that you see here. I know we've been utilizing this model for a while, but we want to provide a little bit more detail and in-depth reporting structures to capture the extent of our outreach and marketing, social media, and programmatic efforts as well. It won't be huge changes, but you may see some modifications and some more detailed elements here. So we will incorporate that into the next reporting cycle and excited to share with you at the next November committee meeting. Oh, yes. So we do have a couple things coming up for the Chargers as well. They are in the works, including a photo pitch from the celebration that we had at with their staff at their location. And then we'll also have a planning event for when the project completion for that as well. But those are in the works, and same with the Intuit Dome. We're waiting for their staff to confirm collaboration on that as well. So it's kind of in their court, but we've completed our work and what we need to do for that for now. And again, we will keep you updated on all of those through the Office of the General Manager. And that concludes my report. So if you all have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Questions? Director Duke. Ray, questions?
No, thank you.
Let's see, I just have a couple of things really quick. One is, speaking of the Chargers, and we did that proclamation photo, but I don't know if we did that yet, or I missed it. I mean, I've been crazy, so I don't know.
Right. No, so that is something, just due to the nature of their brand, we've provided our content for both social media and our media relations with the corporate communications team. So I need to follow up to confirm if there, had any comments or questions. Just we provided it as a courtesy and because they were sensitive to some of the photos
Okay.
on site.
So we're just waiting for that.
But I believe, I'll double check that we did send over some photos. We shared, we just haven't published them yet, like.
Okay. Got it.
Let me know if you didn't get the link, I can resend, otherwise.
Well, just send them again to me.
Okay.
It might got lost in the shuffle, but
Okay.
but good to know that eventually we'll be putting that out there. And I know there's a lot of other things happening like water harvest, etc. Let's see, the El Segundo TV, did they do the story about the tour and the water harvest and all that or not?
So that hasn't been published yet, but also when it is, I will report it in this.
Okay. Cool. Couple other things just on my end, I don't know where we report it, but how are we doing with attendance at the recycled water filling station? How many people are actually coming when it's open? We have an idea. And I don't know where that gets reported, if it's in this committee or somewhere else, but
Camille and point on this project, and we tend, when they have their office hours or whatever, the refill station hours, we tend to ask. I don't have anything recent. I know it's just been, a few people here and there.
Yeah.
But I would have to follow up with our engineering department just to confirm, because we also tend to ask, like, where do they come from and how do they hear? And so it's been, I would say in general, relatively low, but we've been getting definitely, in terms of PR,
of course.
been out there publishing, various e-blasts and whatnot.
I will speak a little bit to that. So the final date for the recycled water fill station is October 31st. So in the next reporting cycle in the November committee, I can certainly, or earlier if you prefer, but I can certainly include a recap of our promotional efforts and the attendance. And I'm sure Camille will also, and maybe in the engineering, maybe she could include a report on her side as well from the programmatic side of it.
Sure.
But from the PR promotional standpoint, I will absolutely include a slide once in the next reporting cycle.
I think that would be great. And so as a member of the committee, I'll just ask, next month, if it's closed out, that'd be a great idea. Include like a recap of, because I think you've done grant promotion. I've seen it. I saw it in the MB News and other places. I just would be very curious how many people did show up, how many people utilized it. Yes, it's a pilot, so we need to understand that and see, how it turned out with all the effort that was put into it. That would be fabulous. And then,
So I think
Go ahead.
Neil had set up a survey system as well to get people's feedback from those who did show up. So I think I'll collaborate with her and see how we want to report that to the board, but I
Perfect.
think it's pretty good figures.
Right. And whether you get what I'm asking for in this committee is fine, and then I guess maybe it goes in engineering operations. I don't know where the other side, or you do it in both, but you know, at the end of the day, the board will want to know how it turned out. Okay, and then my last thing, and I guess probably later we'll, you know, make our comments about the water harvest, which I think was excellent. But I was noticing, you know, the firescaping workshop was also excellent. You know, and I think for the folks who did turn up, and it was a Thursday evening, it was Thursday, right? But it was just a really good event. I want to say thank you so much to staff. Thank you, the LA County Fire Department, you know, the city staff up there that assisted, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it is what it is, but it's funny. I noticed both at our water harvest and at the firescaping workshop and other things. I mean, West Basin, we do such a great job and we broadcast far and wide, but yes, a number of our local elected do not show up to our stuff. Not your fault, but I'm just noting that it's really unfortunate that when we work so collaboratively with all these cities, that a number of the folks do not come to our events. So, you know, we all work hard to let them know, but I don't know what that's about. But I'm just putting it out there. We go out of our way to make sure they understand what we're doing and we're serving these constituents. They don't come. So, but the residents show up, and that's the ones that count. So there you go. All right. With that, are there any other questions on this report? Director Gray
No, thank you.
and Director Deere.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let's move on. 6C is in CAT is the fiscal year 24-25 grass replacement program planning and outreach.
Chair Houston, we have Matthew Bay, Manager of Water Policy and Resources, presenting this item today, which begins on page 40.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, directors. As Eric mentioned, this will be starting on page 40. This will be a little bit of a lengthy report, so if you do have questions, as we're going through it, please, you know, feel free to speak up and let us know. It will be a team effort today. I'll be leading the discussion, but Amy Rocha and Augustine Hahn will both be covering various parts of the presentation as well. So before we get into it, I want to note that there's a few reasons for bringing this information to you today. As you know, we provide monthly reports on our grass replacement rebate programs at PI committee. And I believe there was some interest by the directors to see how we can promote the program in some of our communities that haven't been maybe as active in previous years. We're also now clearly outside of a drought period, have been for almost 2 years now. So turf removal applications are down throughout the region, and that's the metropolitan region, not just West Basin. And so it's a good time to kind of sit back and take a look at the program, analyze some of the trends that we've seen from the last couple of years, but also the last 5 to 10 years, and to explore opportunities to update and improve the program. We did a water use efficiency data study in 2019. That was obviously pre-COVID. And we now have another 5 or 6 years of data to kind of look at post-COVID to see what those trends are. We've also come to understand that traditional turf rebate programs are not necessarily always the most effective in some of our communities, with cost being a huge barrier. Upfront cost is a huge barrier for a good number of our residents. And so while we've started to look at other ways of serving these communities through Grass Replacement Plus, higher rebates, direct install programs such as the Parkway Beautification Program, it still will benefit us to look at the turf removal rebate program as a continued source of opportunity for these communities. And then finally, we're seeing an increase in CII and public agency projects. And with the advent of non-functional turf irrigation ban and the conservation framework regulations that are going into effect over the next few years, we believe that these customers will continue to take up a larger share of our rebate programs in the years ahead, and we want to encourage that. So with that said, let's move to the slide. We'll go to the next slide. So this is the history, brief history of the grass replacement rebate program. So in 1990, Metropolitan began funding turf rebate activities. And this was actually done not through a regional program, but through a member agency administered program. That's a funding program that we still have access to. And so we did have, I believe, in the neighborhood of 100 to 150 applications that went through that MAP program between 1990 and 2014. So a handful of projects each year, not anywhere near the level that we see once the regional program started. And that started in 2014 when they switched over from the MAP funded program to the full-time regional incentive program, which is the turf removal. Then in 2015 and 2016, and we'll see this kind of in some of the tables that we'll be presenting, Metropolitan processed a huge number of kind of backlog or waiting list projects in those 2 years. There was a lot of early adopters in that pool of applicants. And the other thing to note is at that time, contractors could actually apply for rebates on behalf of residents. So I think there was a number of different outfits out there. Turf Communicators was one of them. But it really caused a huge spike in applications those 2 years. And so you'll see that again in some of the tables that we'll share. Then fast forward to 2017, 2018, that funding ran out. So they actually suspended their rebate program for a couple of years. And then in 2019, they started the program back up. And that was kind of coinciding with the drought conditions that we were seeing. And then in 2022, that's when West Basin began providing additional grass removal incentives for our disadvantaged communities, for our public agencies. That's when Grass Replacement Plus began. We were taking advantage of some federal and state funding to supplement our funding of these programs. And many of those things kind of carried into kind of where we are today. Next slide, please. This is just a very high level of the total number of applications that we've seen in our service area. So this encompasses residential, CII, public agency. So about 4,300 applications going back to 2015. And if you go over to the right, you'll see 2,500 applications were actually paid out. So that's the kind of the conversion rate roughly that we see. How many folks are actually going through with their projects and not just applying. That resulted in about $9 million of funding that's been paid out. A lot of that has come through Metropolitan Water District, but of course, West Basin does play a role in that. We had $1, for our residents. We had $3 for our disadvantaged communities, and so on. Then you can see there in the bottom left, based on all of our projects done to date, we've moved about 4.3 million square feet of turf, and that has resulted in about today about 5,200 acre feet per year of water savings. Other than it just causing behavior change for our residents and using less water, we really see the grass replacement program as our kind of one of our major, if not the second most opportunity for water savings in our conservation toolkit.
Okay, Matt, before you move away from the slide, which I think is phenomenal, quite honestly. So this was since 2015. So no matter what the rest of the presentation says down the road and where we all go in the future, I think that you all should utilize this somehow in the future communications of the work we've done. So just make a note now because this is pretty incredible, let alone that number 5,200 acre feet per year approximately has now been saved in our district. So I just want us not to forget that and how we can potentially use that strategically in all various outreach. Also, and probably also in our briefing books. Yeah. Next year. So just thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay, great. Next slide. Okay, so we kind of diced up the information in a few different ways. The first slide here you'll see is by our various cities and some of our unincorporated LA County areas. So I won't go through line by line here, but just to kind of note, at the very top, you see the PV Peninsula. That actually includes a roll-up of all 4 of the PV cities. So when you look at it from that perspective, the highest number of applications have come from there. And I'll just note at the beginning here, these are applications received. These aren't necessarily paid out, but we want to know where our application is coming from when we did our analysis. And then if you go down there, Inglewood had a high number of projects. Culver City, some of the beach cities are up there. Some of our unincorporated areas of LA County, Carson. You can see there. The other thing that I want to point out again is if you look at the bottom of those left 2 columns, 2015 and 2016, you'll see the number of applications that occurred in 2015 and 2016, which was about 3/4 of all the applications that have been received so far. So really speaks to that those early adopters, the kind of the waiting list of people who were looking to do something and took action at that time. And then I think I mentioned before that there were about 150 applications prior to 2015 as part of that MAA program. So that's the city summary. Go to the next slide. We'll see it by customer agency. And at the top there, we see Golden State Water Company, and this includes both Golden State Culver City and Golden State Southwest. If you were to roll up all the different Cal Water Service areas, that would definitely be the highest, but we have them kind of broken out into their individual districts. And then we move on to the next slide. This is our applications by division. And this is one of the, I think, interesting things that we pulled out. We really did have a really uniform distribution between divisions 1 through 4. Everybody, all those divisions were very close to the 1,000 application threshold. The one division that stands out is Division 5. Did have fewer applications than the other ones. I will say that it's interesting, but it's not totally unexpected based on the demographics of Division 5 and the upfront cost that's needed to apply for the rebate to move forward with the project. It's not totally surprising that Division 5 had less than the other divisions, but that's an area of opportunity that we see coming out of this, that we can put more resources and outreach into Division 5 going forward.
Matt, I would add though that 2024 had a pretty strong showing for Division 5.
Yeah, it did, and that's one of the trends that we've seen is that we've seen more disadvantaged community applications in these last few years as we've put more resources into it. And so that's something that we hope to continue to see that trend going forward.
I was gonna say that too, because actually, if you do notice the last 2 years, they're getting their numbers up significantly, kind of a lot more evened out with some of the other areas. And even in 2022, they were doing much better. You can see, as you mentioned prior, that there just was not a lot of activity coming out of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great, that was definitely a change.
Shows that some of the work we all probably did helped make that happen. Before you go to the next one, quick question, because one of the cities mentioned in here is Long Beach, that we had some Long Beach.
Yeah,
Is or something? I
I'm
don't.
not totally sure, but obviously there's parts of our service area that are adjacent to Long Beach.
Uh-huh.
So there could be some overlap there with those addresses. So,
Gotcha. I just
Yeah.
a little curious on that.
yeah.
Thank you.
And the next slide will be taken by Augustine.
Thank you, Matt. This slide just shows a graphic of application activity and how that's correlated to drought periods. This is very simplified and we have some more data to show you later, but the arrows next to application activity show the general trend of the numbers. And then the shading of those arrows kind of, describe the intensity of that activity, I guess. So very clearly, we see that during the drought, after drought periods, that there's a big drop off in application activity. You could see that following the fiscal year 15, 16, 17 drought period. The program was suspended, but we do see that drop off. And then also following the fiscal year 21, 22, 23, with the drop off in fiscal year 24.
I'll go to the next slide. So now we'll get into some of our the maps that we produced for this analysis, and these are what we call heat maps, kind of show where the activity is taking place. This first one is our residential applications, and this includes all residents. So it's not separated out between disadvantaged communities or non-DAC areas. This is all residents. So you can see here some of those hotspots that we call out are the beach cities, City of Carson, Culver City, which was noted in the data study as a high demand area in those early years. City of Inglewood, PV Peninsula, and then in our unincorporated areas, Baldwin Hills was also kind of called out being a very high user of the rebate program. So as we go through these maps, we'll kind of provide other insights. So if we move to the next one, it's our CII applications or commercial properties. This is something that has not had nearly as much activity, but I think we're going to see that trend move toward CII applicants in the coming years, which we'll get into a little bit. I will note, again, it's not big numbers either way, but in columns 2023 and 2024 in that table, you'll see that there has been an upward trend the last couple years, and I think we'll see that continue into this year for the number of applications coming from our CII applicants. So again, the hotspots are called out there on the left. City of Carson had one area kind of over by the tech center where they had about 7 or 8, maybe even more projects, and so that's really why that one kind of stands out there. But Gardena, Hawthorne, Inglewood have a lot of industry areas, and so that's where we see some of the activity there. Next slide. Okay, so now before I get into this slide, I do want to provide just a reminder of the definition that we use when we're talking about disadvantaged communities or DACs, which refer to those areas throughout California and in our service area which most suffer from a combination of economic, health, and environmental burdens. So it's not just, low income populations, it's those that are being burdened by multiple factors. So that includes poverty, high unemployment, air and water pollution, presence of hazardous waste, as well as health impacts like asthma and heart disease. So potentially you could have an area that was higher income, but if they have a lot of other environmental impacts, they could still be considered a disadvantaged community. We do find some of those pockets here and there. West Basin does use Cal EnviroScreen. A lot of public agencies use that as a tool to assess our service area. And that combines different types of census tract information into a score, into a percentile to determine which are the most burdened or disadvantaged. So I think in the past, we've kind of looked at 75 percentile or 80th percentile is the ones that we really try to focus in on the most. But moving over to the table, again, I think you can see a little bit of a trend there emerging in 2022 to 2024, in that there has been an increase in our disadvantaged community applications. Again, I think that's certainly in part due to the Grass Replacement Plus program, more investment into some of those communities, doing outreach to them. And that's something that we really want to continue to focus on going forward. Moving to the next slide. This is a map of just our DAC applications. So non-DAC is not included here. So we have kind of a zoomed in look at the map here. And again, a number of of the areas that you can see. They're pretty uniform in that we're getting hits all over the place, but there are some spots that you see some additional activity there. Okay, the next couple of slides will be done by Augustine.
Great, thank you, Matt. For you directors, this is an assessment of the California Conservation Framework. We thought this would be useful information in kind of informing our outreach to agencies that need to do the most work under the framework. And so the water use efficiency framework regulations for outdoor water use provide a target that is variable based on local weather conditions. And because of things like weather whiplash and climate change, we're seeing that more extreme shifts between hot and dry periods and cool and wet periods are happening more frequently and with higher amplitude or severity. As a result, this is an attempt to assess residential compliance through scenario planning. And so on the left is the hot and dry year scenario. And on the right-hand side is going to be a cool and wet scenario. We took a look at the past 10 fiscal years of data, and fiscal year 22 just happened to be the hottest and driest, and it was followed by the wettest and coolest, which was fiscal year 23. The numbers in red show instances in which suppliers are going over their estimated objective, and with the percentage amount that they would have to reduce to hit that target. Please note that this only includes residential information because we don't have the data necessary to calculate the CII standard. On the bottom, you'll see some graphics to kind of help inform what some of the data on those tables are. And so when you see something like net ETO in the table, the bottom left graphic shows that it attempts to capture the water that is precipitating, evaporating through the ground, and then transpiring through the plant up into the atmosphere. On the bottom, you'll see how the state has landscape efficiency factors that are due to ratchet down over time from 0.8 to 0.55 in 2040. And just for your reference and information, average turf grass has an LEF of about 1 to 1.3, and then Wheelow landscapes are at 0.55. And we'll just move on to the next slide here. And so this graphic is to illustrate commonly associated or colloquially understood drivers of turf removal. I think a lot of the time we hear that the money available in rebates or droughts are kind of those big things that correlate to activity within the turf rebate program. And, you know, we'll kind of just acknowledge that fiscal years 15, 16, and 17 are kind of anomalous to the data. But if we look at the other years, we do see that the dollar per square foot numbers with the bar in yellow and the number of months of declared drought within a fiscal year shown with bars in red do correlate to upticks in activity. And then it also shows the downturn in activity once we get out of drought conditions. That concludes my slides.
We'll go to the next slide. So now we'll be taking a look at each of our distinct customer classes and how we plan to, strategize as a team to reach out to them, to provide them with a program that's effective, that gets them to complete their projects in the coming years. So the first one here is residential. And as you can see, some of the facts and factors here. So this year that we're in right now, we're offering $3 per square foot. This is $2 coming from Metropolitan Water District, $1 that we're adding. We looked at the average size of residential projects over the last 10 years, I believe, and seen about 1,400, 1,500 square feet. That seems to be a pretty close to the kind of average you see throughout Metropolitan's service area of about 1,500 square feet. And going back to just 2020, which is kind of COVID and post-COVID, wanted to look at the average number of applications per year. So we're about 153 for residential. Also would note that we were able to get an extension on our USBR grant just in the last few months. So we'll now have that additional $1 funding through next year. And so that'll be provided for these customers. It also provides us with some additional funding for outreach and advertising, $25,000. And then as I'll mention in another one, it provides some funding for design work for our public. I don't think it's a big surprise that the majority of applications come from our residential customers, at least historically. And even with that said, with all the work that we've done, we kind of estimate that less than 3% of our residential parcels have participated in the program, which just shows you that there's still a ton of opportunity out there. Of course, that doesn't include those projects that converted outside of the program that did it on their own, but you can still see that there's just a lot of opportunity. Into the next slide, we'll now go through the challenges and opportunities for residential. I think the first one to note is definitely that early adopters, many of them, all of them, have already completed their projects. So that low-hanging fruit that existed in 2015, 2016, the regional program being new is now gone. So it takes more effort, more activity to reach new potential customers or takers of the rebate. Upfront out-of-pocket cost continues to remain an obstacle for many residents. The application process can be lengthy, confusing, and overwhelming. We try to do what we can to help them through that with our West Basin chats, with a good website that provides process. But I think there's definitely more that we can look at to do to get them through that process. And then during non-drought periods, we just see higher disinterest, I think, in general from the region. There's less urgency to do that. On the other hand, when we do have those drought periods, it does make it easier to get people to participate in these programs, which I'm sure we'll see with the next uptick, next drought. And then we do have a large service area in an expensive media market. To do outreach, to really get the message out there, it does take funds and resources. And so it spreads things out for us, makes it a little more difficult to raise awareness of the program. Now, for the opportunities, as we've talked about the water use efficiency framework regulations, there are opportunities there to educate people about that and to kind of express the importance of reducing their outdoor water use and replacing their grass is one of the best ways. So that's one thing that we'll be looking at. We want to continue to look at our priority underserved areas, all-inclusive programs in addition to rebates, parkway beautification, grass replacement plus being recent examples of that. We can continue to enhance our customer service to get them through the pipeline of their projects. I think we can also empower our residents to become ambassadors for these programs. There's people that have gone through the program that love talking about their yard. So we want to look for opportunities to get those people in front of their neighbors, in front of their communities to talk about the benefits of these projects. Using testimonials on our website, photo opportunities, those are all things that we'll continue to explore. Moving to the next slide. These are just some of the numbers. So based on the funding that we have in place for this fiscal year, our grass replacement goal is 100,000 square feet. If you take the average project size, we're looking at about 65 to 70 projects this year that we would need to hit that goal. It is a lofty target, but it's something that we want to try to hit if we can. We want to try to, other goals include spreading out the projects across our divisions and across the district as best as we can. We'd like to see at least 50% of our projects that are applied for go through to completion. And we want to look for new ways to engage with our residents and to celebrate their their projects and their successes through the program. And to talk a little bit more about how we intend to do that, I'll turn it over to Amy.
So I'll start off on packet page 73 to talk about the general residential segment of the population and what resources we have, as well as just our standard tactics that we apply to our programs in general, and then also some highlights for this particular segment. So this would be our broadest segment that covers all 17 cities. I know we do get into the disadvantaged community areas, but this is our most general approach. Currently in our budget, we have $15,000 earmarked for this kind of marketing effort, some of which is just printing of basic collateral, and then mostly social media, about 20% for social media. We do find that when we ask people how they hear about things these days, social media is a major driving force, and then other digital assets, again, because just reduce any kind of hard reduction in costs and printing costs. So I'll start off on the right here, this sidebar, that standard tactics. So, these are the general marketing tactics that we apply for most all of our programs. It takes advantage of our owned channels, things in which we have control over. And that's, our creative production of flyer and content, our website, whether that's a dedicated program page, web news stories that we produce, our e-newsletter as another mechanism for reaching our audiences. And then, of course, our partnership with South Bay Environmental Services Center is really important in utilizing their network to reaching an audience that's already environmentally minded and more likely to participate in our programs. And then, of course, through media relations, this is where we're earning. We're not paying for ads, but the merits of our story, the merits of our accomplishments, and of course the value to the residents that we're trying to reach. And then whether it's photos or visual assets that we can provide to help encourage them to run a story. And then of course we already talked about social media, and then the money that we put behind it to boost those posts and geo-target those posts. And then our classes, which Daryl spoke to, whether it's a chat or a Know Your H2O class, those are all opportunities to showcase this program. And then same for our presentations, whether it's out in the community or through our dedicated speakers bureau. These are all chances to drive awareness of these rebates. As far as strategy highlights for this particular market, right now, a lot of this is staff driven. It's staff resources. We have limited, funding to do any more direct marketing, which tends to be more pricier to do direct marketing. So a lot of these, it's, through relationship building, through partnerships and really trying to work with, our stakeholders that are, quote unquote influencer types, and that can help amplify our message and reach a broader audience. So for example, we touched on some of our potential or upcoming partnership with WRD to offer landscaping classes. While the class may be focused on transforming your garden, it certainly goes the other side of the coin to removing that grass. And so those kind of opportunities, chance to focus placement, looking for new ways to develop our relationships, and not just through the COG, but through our own, relationship building. And then also taking advantage of the creative and the resources that Metropolitan provides, because we all have the same message, and they're clearly a funding partner in this. So looking to leverage what they have as well, so that we're also, just not recreating the wheel, so to speak. And then just being cognizant and aware of what our other retailers are doing. Sometimes the retailers have their own programs and they prefer to, stay focused on that. And so, I don't get into too much on how that impacts our applications, because it's possible that they're going through their own retailer, but, also presenting the retailers with the opportunity always to partner. And then again, just to be cost effective, and just in the digital age that we live in, making sure our content is optimized digitally, whether that's QR codes, making sure content is mobile, tablet friendly, and all of those kind of considerations, looking at our web traffic data as well. And then just some tactical highlights for this group, taking advantage of what we would provide to a traditional media outlet in terms of assets and pitching and making sure that we're doing a rotation to our city newsletters, which, it benefits us at large, but, particularly for this program. Exploring some media partnerships, that are a little bit more tailored to a lifestyle, home and garden type content. And then, as mentioned, cross promoting and making sure that when, Metropolitan, for example, is just rolling out its newest season of a Goodbye Grass campaign with some new creative that they've, hired a well-respected ad agency to do, that we're making sure we're getting and using those assets. So I think that is basic approach for this. And then, of course, as we, take stock like we are now, and as we see the fiscal year progress, looking at ways we can constantly be adjusting our approach to, and see how, with measurement, seeing how we can adjust accordingly. So I'll turn it back to you, Matt.
Forward to page 75. We'll start talking about our CII customers now. And as you would expect, there's, a lot of differences between CII and residential. It's much, I guess, on a grand scale, fewer CII properties throughout. There's some of our divisions have more CII, some have less. I think they're motivated by money, just like residents are in some cases, but maybe even more so as a business. And so these are all things that we have to take into account as we move forward with our CII grass placement program. Again, I'll just mention, I mentioned this before, that we have seen a trend the last couple of years of higher number of applications from this customer class, and we'll continue to expect seeing that as non-functional turf bans take hold, as conservation regulations take hold in the region. So this year we're seeing $4 per square foot for our CII customers. 3 of that is coming from Metropolitan, and then 1 from us. You'll see here that the average project size is much higher for our CII projects than for residential, nearly 12,000 square feet. Again, this is something that's just starting to see more of. So 6 applications per year since 2020. And again, that irrigation ban on non-functional turf, will continue to see that play an impact going forward. Moving to the next slide, where we talk about challenges and opportunities. The one thing that we note is that often there could be longer lead times for these companies. They might have a budget planning process or CIP planning that is a multi-year thing. So some of their projects can have longer lead times. The ROI on some of these projects can be, up to 10 years or longer, maybe even in some cases. And so that's a big thing that businesses have to consider. There's just a higher cost overall due to these larger projects. So, for instance, that average 12,000 square foot project could cost $100,000 depending on, how nice they're making that project. Hopefully they're being cost effective and cost less, but it is a big expense for some of them. And then in terms of accessing, who's the right person to talk to and to encourage these projects, many of them are managed by, national or regional property management companies. So getting in touch with them can be a challenge at times. And then even when it comes to the landscapers themselves, often I think they're contractors instead of in-house employees. So getting a hold of the landscapers who know the landscapes can be a challenge. On the other hand, the opportunities, again, we can use this rebate program as a way to engage them about the conservation regulations, about the non-functional turf ban. I think another area where I know the PI team has been working on speakers program to meet with chambers and have talked with some of our business communities about the non-functional turf ban. But we can continue to do that as we push these programs going forward. And then again, same thing with our residential. We can highlight previous CII projects. We can figure out ways to recognize some of these companies that are doing these projects. And then we also want to look at how we can provide similar design services that we do for public agencies for our CII customers, because again, that's one of the barriers to this program is designed and where to start. So if we can provide landscape design services, we'll be able to entice more of them to take the plunge. So moving to the next slide, now we're looking at the goal that we have for this fiscal year for CII. It's 50,000 square feet. And because of the size of these projects, we're looking at a much smaller number, maybe 5 projects, maybe 10. We just had a project come through that was 25,000 square feet. So if we had 2 of those, we would essentially be at our goal. But so we don't know how they'll come in, but that's kind of a rough figure that we're looking at. We'd like to try to hit 5 to 10 this year. And then a lot of the same things that I mentioned for residential hold true in terms of our other goals there. And so again, I'll turn over the next slide to Amy.
So I'm on packet page 78, and just overview of this segment is that it covers the full service area. It also reaches the private sector, business organizations. So it's obviously different than residential. For our marketing budget, we also had set aside $15,000. Right now we're focused on the public agency program, and that's got a different funding source. And then should new programming be determined for, the broader CI area, that funds would help with that mostly. Main thing that for this year, heading into this year and we're planning into next fiscal year is just really maximizing our Chamber of Commerce memberships. We already, as a district pay for that kind of partnership. So, what are the communications mechanisms that are really active? Who are the larger regional most active chambers, and how can we make sure to take advantage of the benefits afforded us as members? And then same goes for Metropolitan. For some tactical highlights would be, again, providing content, providing that same pitch style approach to some of our larger active chambers. And then not only that, but, because it is the chamber that is interested in an array of things, what else might they also be interested in? Let's, take advantage of that, whether it's bid opportunities or, those that are interested on a proposition or what the ordinances mean to them. So kind of making it a more of a broader communications opportunity. Again, co-branding with whatever Met Creative, they have, their own materials for CII. And then, looking at how we communicate with this audience, whether it's a dedicated e-blast newsletter, or, if you've got a well-defined enough set of players, for example, like the property management companies, how can we directly reach them? So that is it for this slide.
Okay. Now we'll move to page 80, the packet. We'll talk about our priority areas or our disadvantaged communities. Just kind of starting at the top there, you'll see that for this fiscal year, we have $5 per square foot to offer our disadvantaged community residents. That is being funded $2 by Metropolitan, $3 by West Basin. That $3 is being funded through a Department of Water Resources grant that we have that has carried over from the last couple of years that got extended to December of next year, which is great. We hope to fully exhaust that funding. Average residential project size for these communities is pretty close to what you'd see for residential overall, a little bit less, 1,300 square feet instead of 1,400. So in the same ballpark there. And then again, I talked about this before, but these areas are determined and classified primarily by the Cal Enviro screen, which looks at a number of different data points. There are fewer rebate applications that come from this customer class, but again, I think we are seeing an upward trend in the last few years because of the programs that we offered. And then obviously you can kind of see there in divisions 3 and 4, the number of applications are a little bit less, especially in 3. I think, that's to be expected because there's fewer disadvantaged communities in those divisions, but we want to continue to really see what those communities are and see if we can target them with our upcoming cycle, get them to participate. Because the more projects that you get in an area, the more people that see those, and we'll encourage people to do their own projects. So that's really what we would like to see happen with this customer class. Moving to the next page, page 81. Again, the challenges and opportunities, cost is even more of a obstacle for some of these residents. Some of these communities, depending on what their language spoken at home is, they may not subscribe or read traditional media. They may have different cultural preferences or languages that communicate where they get their information from. I think there is a total distrust in government and in some of these communities. That's pretty well known. And then again, a lot of these are folks that struggle to pay their utility bills. So asking them to put money up front for a rebate program just might not be realistic. So those are definitely some of the challenges. But in terms of opportunities, been a huge focus on this from our state and federal governments, local governments to direct funding into these areas. That's why we were able to get some of the funding that we have for these programs. The Inflation Reduction Act is sending a lot of funding through local governments. So we're hoping to continue to look for accessing those types of funding pots. The government and public focus on environmental justice, again, is another focus that's really increased the last few years. And then we'd also want to look for opportunities to build on the workforce development efforts that we've been exploring to educate, our students and next generation of residents that are coming up about the importance of sustainable landscaping, about the jobs that are out there that they can be part of, about the water industry in general. We think there are some good opportunities to do that with this. Janelle, who's in here, does a great job in reaching out to schools and students about these programs. And so we want to continue to work with those partnerships to bring more awareness about grass replacement, and then all of our regional partnerships that we have, the county, WRD, the Board of Supervisors, looking for ways to get into these communities and really plant these seeds for these programs. Moving to the next page, page 82, we'll see our goal for this year, 25,000 square feet for disadvantaged community residents. So that's about 20 to 25 projects. I think it's doable. We'll have to work hard at it, but it is doable. And again, same thing with the other customer classes in terms of goals, but we do want to build upon the success of our Parkway beautification program as well and see if we can find ways to let people know about that. And it's a good starting point for projects. It's a smaller area, and then let them take that into the rest of their properties. That I'll turn it over to Amy for the next one.
I'm on packet page 83. And just in terms of reaching this community, I mean, a lot of the same tactics for any residential customer. But we, as the challenges suggested, we know that there are certain barriers to participation. And so one of the things that, we would like to be able to spend more money on is kind of directly reaching our residents there. So to make sure we're driving awareness. So investing a little bit more in our efforts, whereas the other segments are more reliant on staff time, our own channels. And again, we've already talked about partnerships as well. And then, really looking at our messaging too, making sure that our messages speak to the barriers or the benefits of our customized programs. Because in these cases, what is really driving, it's not a matter of marketing per se, but it's the programs that are designed to meet their needs on top of driving awareness. And then just some of our tactical approaches is just building on the success of, where we know there's demand for those hot spots and really just, continuing to maximize our ability to get applications in those areas. Not ignoring the cold spot, quote unquote, or for example, the Division 5. We definitely want to address that and provide some more attention there. But then again, I think that's, looking at, hey, what are the programming needs and constantly evaluating that as well. But much of the same tactics with just a little bit more funding put towards reaching the communities directly.
We'll move to the last customer type here, which is public agencies. So moving to page 85. This is definitely a unique customer, and how we outreach to them is a lot different than how we do with the previous three that we talked about. But just to give some background info here, so the rebate, I think as far as we know, is currently at $5 per square foot, and this is coming 100% from Metropolitan Water District. They have 2 grants that they're using to supplement their $3 per square foot. We expect one of them to be fully utilized pretty soon if it hasn't been already. So it would drop to $4 per square foot, but it should stay at $4 per square foot for the rest of the fiscal year at least. Average project size is about 7,500 square feet, but it really varies across the board. For instance, we have Cal State University Dominguez Hills, which just submitted an application, and they're, I think, 160,000 square feet. So, I mean, you can see that we have some really large projects that can come out of this customer base. So, with that said, there's a lot fewer applications per year. There really wasn't any before 2020, or not much. And then we've kind of seen it go up and down the last few years. I think we're going to have more applications this year based on what we've been hearing, but about 2 per year over the last 5 years. Moving to the next slide in the challenges and opportunities. So again, these are larger projects with significant costs. It's something that they have to budget for, just like we do as a public agency. So there's key processes for schools, for cities. It does require, in many cases, the city council or a board or commission to approve the project. So it's not just, hitting the switch. You have to go through the approval process. So that can cause long lead times for projects. And it's very much subject to economic factors and how a city is doing with its budget. The opportunities, again, as we've mentioned, cities are going to have to grapple with that non-functional turf ban. They're going to have to grapple with those conservation regulations. So this gives us an opportunity to partner with them, educate them on the need for this type of landscaping. Continue to highlight some of the previous projects, and I think there'll be an opportunity for us to recognize some of these public agencies as they finish their projects, to bring them in, congratulate them. I'm sure we'll have other ideas about that. And then we want to continue to offer the free landscape design to them. Been well utilized so far. They appreciate it, that free service that we provide them. So that's something that I think we need to continue doing there. And then I think we have to look for additional partnerships with nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of overlap between stormwater and grass removal, and grass removal projects require a stormwater aspect to that. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to work with our cities and our school districts to incorporate those types of aspects to their project. Moving to the next slide. So because Metropolitan is providing the full $5 per square foot, we're not adding any funding this year. We don't have a hard number for how many square feet we're looking to remove, because the projects vary so much. We could put something up there, and then we get Dominguez Hills that has 150,000 square feet project. So our goal is really just to maximize the number of projects that we see move forward this year. We have frequent check-ins with our cities that are in the design process or thinking about it, engaging them throughout the year to see if they're ready to move forward, and then encouraging the ones that have applied to the program to move forward with their projects. So that's really our goal for public agencies, to work with them through all the different various phases of the process. And then we want to look for opportunities to connect with those school districts, those cities that haven't engaged or haven't applied in the past, and really see if it's something that they might be ready to do. So that's one of the things that we're going to prioritize with this specific customer base.
What kind of numbers do you have in terms of total districts versus those that have not yet applied?
It's a good question. I don't have the breakdown at hand, but I'd be happy to put that together for you and give you I think, Gus, we have a list that we might provide at later in your presentation that shows all the ones that have applied or design phase. So we can provide that, but we'll provide a more comprehensive.
There's a report can add, there tends to be a higher participation for public agencies, but their projects tend to take a little bit longer.
Thank you. All right, and I'll turn it over to Amy for the next to last slide.
Page 88, and some of this, reiterates what Matt's already saying, but this is the biggest, broadest segment, we look at, it's all across 17 cities, dozens of school districts, the county, local and federal properties. So, the segment is quite large, but at the same time, it's relatively few that, can get all the resources required to really to do the full conversion. So, a lot of it right now is in pretty good shape. If I, may say, is we've got a lot of potential candidates with large lot size that, from the purposes of giving out all of our funding, quote unquote, or to maximize, the square footage that we're allowing. We've got a good pipeline going, but to not be complacent, it's constantly looking at, all right, well, who's responding, who else might be candidates. If we see new, corporate, parks being built, like who's a developer, and really keeping an eye open, and then making those personal outreach and calls. And I think that the policy team's already been doing a lot of that well. And then, so some of this is just a continuation of the strategies we've been, utilizing, whether that's local government affairs updates, the mentions in chambers and whatnot, and working with city staff to really make sure they know what it would entail. And so, really just moving forward and how do we keep that pipeline going too, is just taking what success stories we have, developing content that would showcase what benefits are, and then looking at our areas for potential, so the opportunities that Matt had mentioned. And then as far as marketing, there's just one CII bucket of funds, quote unquote, that we could tap into. But for the most part, it's been more through existing relations, and we haven't put money to promote it per se. It's been organic. So yeah, we're just continuing on with the good work that seems to be happening with public agencies. That's it for me. Matt.
Great. So I have one final slide to share. This just looks kind of looking towards the future. So there's the things that we're going to continue to do. So following, any feedback or questions that we received from the board today, we plan to start implementing that outreach strategy that Amy has spoken to. And at the end of the fiscal year and throughout the year, we want to kind of evaluate what's the customer response to these strategies, to these tactics, and see if, there's going to be different ways to look at it. Are we seeing more applications in certain areas? But there's also, I think, beyond the quantitative outcomes, there's going to be qualitative too. Are we reaching our customers, the ones that are we engaging with? Do they feel that we're providing them with good service, that we're answering their questions? So, while we want to see more applications in general, we also want to evaluate the other parts of the program to see if it's effectively serving our different customer classes. We also want to work with our retailers, our cities, our business communities, nonprofits, our legislators, those who have the ears of their constituents, and other stakeholders that we frequently interact with to boost participation in the program. We want to continue to serve our customers throughout the process, throughout the application process. We want to see them be successful. We don't want to lose them dropping out of the program. And then, as Amy mentioned, we want to leverage Metropolitan's resources. They have a pretty good budget for this, and there's new outreach that they're doing. And so we want to try to leverage that as much as we can. And then in terms of areas of need, if you ask any public agency, communications or conservation manager, they're always going to tell you that they need more funding, they need more resources. This is something that we tried to go after last year through a grant. We've gotten funding for additional outreach and market research. Unfortunately, we didn't receive that grant funding, but if we really want to take our program, I think, to the next level, additional funding for outreach, additional funding for market research to understand our communities and their affinity for these types of programs would really be beneficial. Of course, staff will work to maximize the resources that we do have available to us. But this is an area of need that I think we can continue to consider going forward. And then the other part of it is just program buy-in and partnership from our retailers. They're very stretched thin. A lot of our cities are. So getting folks who can be advocates from those agencies is really important in order to get program buy-in. And so I think that's a challenge for us, or a goal for us this year, is to identify those folks who can help us, amplify the message that we're trying to put out there for these programs. So with that said, that wraps up our update, and our collective team will be happy to entertain any other questions or feedback from the board.
Thank you. Director Deere, any questions?
Okay.
Director Gray? Let's see, I just have a few comments, but I'm gonna be quick because, time is moving fast, as you know. This is a lot of data, it's a lot of great information, so I think it's excellent, and it's the kind of thing the board needs and you all need, so I appreciate that. Just my top thoughts based on a lot of things in here. You noted the application process can be lengthy, confusing, overwhelming. I get that, totally understand that. That's a metropolitan situation, right? So maybe there's a way that we can do our best to work with Metropolitan on how do people potentially tweak or adjust that application process. If that's being a hindrance, I mean, it's like anything. Can we step back and relook at that? And it's kind of, this one's out of our control. So that's just my feedback, but I think that should be brought to their attention. As far as, all of us, the budgets are stretched thin to no budget. And how do we continue to get more people engaged in these programs? But Director Williams is not here, but obviously he's really big on the very grassroots guerrilla marketing. You all heard this before. But what I was thinking too is, we really also need to work with some of those other partners in our community. So the realtors, we need to have better relationship with a couple of those realtor associations. And I think that could be a great way to get them the information. It's easy, it's almost free basically, and they can get that out in a broader audience, let alone people who are selling houses or potentially looking at people buying or selling houses or commercial properties. You get in front of some of their faces potentially using the realtor association. So I just think that would be great. We do have some really good developers in this area, like Continental Development and Watson Land Company and some of the other ones. I think you literally could build on those relationships firsthand and see what they're doing, because I think the other thing that's going to hit everybody is that turf removal law eventually. So, at some point, people are going to make decisions with their properties, or if they're rehabbing the property, do I keep grass in there and it's going to die and look terrible? Or is this going to be a dead spot? Or I'm going to put in drought tolerant eventually. So I just think we could work. Again, relationships, this really almost costs us nothing. It's just some phone calls, utilize directors, but also I think staff can work on building up those relationships, because a lot of you already have relationships with some of those organizations. And last thing on that, there are a number, there's pockets of these warehousing and commercial developments in most of our cities, especially El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, and so on. And they're all going to be hitting this challenge. So that's just the thought. Chambers of Commerce, you mentioned, of course. And then I was thinking too, there are some cities that have robust homeowners associations. Torrance has quite a few, but Torrance is not in our service area except for pockets. But, I think that if we can utilize some of the relationships with those HOAs in the area, again, just getting the information to them that they can put in their newsletters, e-blasts, etc. Because so much of this is literally just getting it in the right hands to get distributed. So that is most of my comments. The only other thing I'll add to this, and I can obviously talk to people offline, but you know, I do understand the conversion rate's harder now because there's a number of people taking advantage of it, but maybe there's an idea that for those between the ones who have taken advantage as well as the ones who are looking to do it, when you have upcoming potential classes or workshops, maybe you would implement like a refresher course or something for those. Because again, like you can drive through parts of Culver City and other areas, and there'll be house after house has a beautiful outdoor landscape at this point. But you know, maybe people would like some more information in the future of how do I maintain this or what's the next step, let alone get them to be the ambassador for the neighbor. So those are just my personal thoughts. But with that, you know, I don't think there's really anything else at this time. I want to say thank you for this. And with that, we've got to move on to, is it just one or two? It's two items, right?
Right.
So two items. So I am going to ask we expedite this because time is, I really need to get moving here. So let's do 6D as in dog monthly conservation programs update.
Chair Houston, we have Gus Mesa, Senior Water Policy Resources Analyst.
And good afternoon, Chair Houston, directors. Yes, I'll be brief with my update. Let's see, next, I'll be starting on packet page 95. Next slide, please. Just a brief update on our Parkway beautification program. Great use report starting this week. Starting the construction of the remaining 3 parkways. So we'll be at 7 parkways per division in the next few weeks. And so our original goal was 5 parkways per division. So we've exceeded our goal. And based on our current remaining budget with our contractor, we're going to be able to do another 1 or 2 parkways per division. So we'll end up at around 8 or 9 parkways per division. And our goal is to complete this program by November, December timeframe. Next slide, please. Here's a few great examples of some parkways that you can see before and after photos. Division 2, 3, and 4. They removed the grassy areas that use a lot of water, lots of runoff, and you can see they install these beautiful parkways. Next slide, please. Currently on packet page 98. I know that Matt and Amy did a great job covering all this data, so I'm going to go ahead and move through some of this grass replacement information. Next slide, please. Here is a great example of a water-wise garden in a disadvantaged community, underserved area. Gardena, you can see they removed that carpet of grass. And they installed this beautiful water-wise garden, which I think looks great. Next slide, please. And this is our $3 per square foot rebate. So I'm going to go ahead and move on here. The next slide. And so I'm on the public agency program, which we talked a little bit about. Amy talked about. We continue working with our cities, schools, parks. I know that Matt had mentioned to me the other day, he attended the stormwater meeting. The South Lake area with the city of Lomita, we're talking about a stormwater project that they're thinking of doing out in front of the city of Lomita where they have a lot of grass. And so we're working with them right now to try to see if we can make that that happen. And that's a good example of the stormwater folks working with them on grass replacement project. Next slide, please. We've seen a lot of this data, so I'm going to go ahead and keep moving here. I want to show an example of a commercial site here in the city of Carson. So lodges, they plan on retrofitting this area, removing the grass. They've applied for a few projects, so it's great to see this company participating. Next slide, please. Few upcoming programs. I want to provide a quick update. We continue working with our partners here, Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and LA County Water Works. We've met with them a few times over the last couple of weeks. And so they are moving pretty quickly now with this new MOU. They met with their legal counsel. Their legal counsel provided them with some language, updated language, which they provided to us. We in turn provided that to our legal counsel to review, and they were fine with that language. They just wanted to protect their customer data, sensitive data. So they added some language, which our legal was fine with. And so now Las Virgenes, they're also reviewing that this MOU right now. So we hope to get this information back to LA County to let them know we are fine with the language, and they can hopefully take this to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And at the same time, we'll be bringing this item back via the three-way MOU agreement to this committee, hopefully in the next month or so. Next slide, please. All our Rain Barrel events are scheduled. Very excited about this. We reached out to all the volunteer groups that will be helping us, the schools, the Boys and Girls Club, and they're very excited to work with us. So everything's moving forward with these events. So I'll continue moving along here. The next slide. A couple of classes that were mentioned earlier today. This partnership with WRD, November 20th. We'll be holding a garden design class at Darby Park in the city of Inglewood. So we look forward to that. Also a West Basin chat to help residents understand how to apply for rebates in February. Next slide. Last slide here, we always show the upcoming classes through Metropolitan Water District. Most of these are virtual classes that residents can sign up for. As you can see, it's a quite long list of classes, very informative. So that is my last slide. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Gus. Okay, good. Any questions for Gus? Director Gray, any questions? I have no questions. With that one comment.
No.
Thank you,
No,
thank
thank
you. Director Gray. Thank you to staff for pushing hard with that MOU. I appreciate that, and we'll keep on moving forward with that. Much appreciated. Also glad we got the Rain Barrel event scheduled and you have the flyers ready to go and all the information go out. So that's great. Okay. Lastly, item 6E is an Edward monthly water bottle filling station program update. Eric.
Chair Houston, we have Tammy Hurley, Senior Water Policy and Resources Analyst, present this today.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, board members. So happy to be here today to provide you with a brief update on the water bottle filling station program that we have. And that first slide starts on page 112 of the committee packet. Thank you. So this shows what the total applications that we received for last fiscal year. There was a total of 20. And to date, 7 stations have already been installed. If we can move to the next slide, please. And last month, we were able to complete a photo opportunity at Bonita Street Elementary School in Carson. This is part of the LA Unified School District. And included in this photo is the school principal, Miss Carrie Porter, and standing next to her is Mr. Jason Louie, who works at the school district office in the Facility Legislation Grants and Funding Office. This is located outside of the main classroom building and next to the playground area. And Bonita Street Elementary is a STEAM academy with a student enrollment of over 400 students. Move to the next slide, please. And here are a few entities that we have received inquiries from. In Division 1 is Dominguez Rancho Adobe Museum. In Division 2 is Bennett Q Preschool through 8th grade school in Division 2. And I also want to mention that we have recently had a group discussion with the Inglewood Unified School District, basically to talk about more of all of their schools in their district and what West Basin programs we have to offer in terms of the water bottle filling station grant program and regarding our grass replacement programs that you just heard about. So that was a collaborative effort between our department, water policy, and the High Department. So there were a few of us, Janelle was included, and We had a really good discussion. It was very productive. So we look to hear more back from them again and to see how we can help them with their program. And then also for Division 3, we've been in communication with both the Hermosa Beach School District and the Leadership Redondo Class of 2024. And the next slide, please. This is the final slide. It's the budget for this fiscal year. It includes a new application from the city of Hermosa Beach and then the Gardena Buddhist Church. So that concludes my update. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Tammy. Any questions? Director Deer? Director Gray, any questions?
No, just comment. I want to thank staff for meeting with the county administrator in Inglewood School District and the potential opportunities there in collaboration. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Tammy, for all your work on this project, which I know it's changes like every year is trying to find folks who are looking for these, so we appreciate that. So with that, we have no closed session today. Director's comments or future agenda items. Director Deer, comments?
Very informative meeting. Thank you.
Director Gray?
Yes, Don already said it, informative meeting, but I have to always, as we all do, congratulate staff or thank staff for their work. They continue to do outstanding work in collaboration with our communities and all the projects. And all the projects are just being handled perfectly. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Gray. And in wrapping up, I will also say again, thank you for all the presentations, a lot of information here, much appreciated. And also, the water harvest, which I suppose you'll give more of a bigger update next month, right? Something like that. That next month.
Oh, Mr.
Gotcha.
Chair.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Director Gray.
I'm sorry. I mean, I've been on the listening to most of the presentation and not everything I caught, but water harvest was just outstanding. If that's an opportunity, just make those comments. I was there as well as all of us, and I just thought each year just gets better and better and better. So thank you to staff, but thank you to all the staff for all the projects that they do. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Director Gray. And I just wanted to reiterate that as well. And I know that you'll have the bigger update at the future meeting for us, it sounds like, but water harvest was really excellent, a lot of fun, and look forward to hearing, how the participation rates were and some of that, post-event analysis, let alone, the publicity you were able to get, but really to focus on water education and so on and so forth. But I do want to just commend you all up front that it was a really great day. It was a lot of fun, quite frankly, for lack of a better way to put it. And so it's much appreciated, from this board. So we really enjoy that. So with that, we have nothing else to discuss. Our next scheduled meeting is November 21st of 2024. And we are adjourned.